Adam and Eve fell when they ate the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Many Christians to this day have thought that this was the fruit of an actual tree. Why should we stubbornly adhere to a literal interpretation of the fruit, when so much of the Bible makes use of symbolism and metaphor? In the Bible, we read that a serpent tempted Eve to commit sin. What does the serpent symbolize? The serpent described in the Bible was able to converse with people. It knew the will of God, which forbade eating of the fruit. The great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to earth. Having lived in heaven before it was thrown down, this devil or Satan must have been a spiritual being. Since Satan is a spiritual being, the serpent which symbolizes him must also represent a spiritual being. The strands of biblical evidence confirm that the serpent who tempted Eve was not an animal, but a symbol for a spiritual being. So now the question is whether this serpent existed before the creation of the universe, or was created as a part of the universe. If the serpent existed before the creation of the universe and had a purpose contrary to that of God, then the conflict between good and evil in the universe would be unavoidable and perpetual. God's entire providence of restoration would then be in vain. Moreover, monotheism, which holds that everything in the universe was created by one God, would be unfounded. We're left with the conclusion that this spiritual being was originally created with a good purpose, but later fell and became Satan. So what kind of spiritual being in God's creation could have conversed with people, understood the will of God, and lived in heaven? What kind of being, even after it had fallen, degraded to an evil being, could transcend time and space to dominate the human soul? There are no other beings endowed with such characteristics other than angels. An angel tempted human beings to fall. Now let's investigate what kind of sin the angel and the human beings committed. And the angels did not keep their own position, but left their proper dwelling, have been kept by him in eternal chains in the nether gloom until the judgment of the great day, just as Sodom and Gomorrah and the surrounding cities, which likewise acted immorally and indulged in unnatural lust, serve as an example by undergoing a punishment of eternal fire. This passage helps us to understand that the angel fell as a result of an illicit sexual relationship. Fornication is a crime you can't commit alone. So with whom did the angel commit this illicit sexual act in the Garden of Eden? In order to unveil this mystery, let's examine what kind of sin Adam and Eve committed. We read that before Adam and Eve fell, they were both naked and unashamed. After the fall, however, they felt ashamed of their nakedness and sewed fig leaves together into aprons to cover their lower parts. It's human nature to conceal one's faults. In Job it's written, "If I have concealed my transgressions like Adam, by hiding my iniquity in my bosom." Adam and Eve's sexual parts were the source of their shame, because they were the instruments of their sinful deed. So we can deduce that this illicit relationship must have involved the angel and human beings. Jesus said, "You are of your father the devil, and your will is to do your father's desires." People are descendants of Satan. What? How is that possible? Through what circumstance did humankind become the descendants of the fallen angel Satan? There was an illicit sexual relationship between the angel and the first human ancestors. As the fruit of that relationship, all humanity is of the lineage of Satan. When St. Paul wrote, "We ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, groan inwardly as we wait for adoption as sons, the redemption of our bodies," he was acknowledging that we fallen people stem from the lineage of Satan, not the lineage of God. John the Baptist reproached the people, calling them a brood of vipers, meaning children of Satan. Jesus said to the scribes and Pharisees, "You serpents, you brood of vipers, how are you to escape being sentenced to hell?" We are the offspring of an illicit sexual relationship involving the angel and our first human ancestors. This lies at the heart of the human fall. The tree of life symbolizes a man who's fully realized the ideal of creation. Perfected Adam was to be this ideal man. The tree of life thus symbolizes perfected Adam. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil, by fulfilling its good purpose, represents the ideal woman, perfected Eve. What does the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil represent? It signifies the love of Eve. Eve was meant to eat the fruit of goodness by consummating her God-centered love. Then she would have received the essence of God's divinity and multiplied a good lineage. However, she ate the fruit of evil by consummating her evil love centered on Satan. Hence, she received the essence of his evil nature and multiplied an evil lineage, from which our sinful society descended. Accordingly, Eve's eating of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil denotes that she consummated a satanic love relationship with the angel, which bounded her in blood ties to him. So the root of sin, again, wasn't a physical fruit, but was based on an ungodly, evil, self-centered kind of love. Sexual immorality is the root of sin, and it's been perpetuated throughout lineal descent from generation to generation. The religions that emphasize the need to purge sin regard fornication as a cardinal sin. They've taught the virtues of chastity and restraint in order to curb it, because the root of sin is found in lustful desire. The Israelites performed the rite of circumcision as a condition for sanctification. They qualified themselves as God's chosen people by draining blood, because the root of sin lies in our evil blood. Everything that you've heard in this video is from the book, The Exposition of the Divine Principle. This book is an absolute full deep dive into the Bible, into Jesus and God, and so much more. I like it because it explains God's providence and history in a very clear and very systematic way. Everything connects, and I've yet to find any holes. So read this book and let me know if you do find anything that doesn't make sense, and I'll definitely hear you out.